More than 5,500 migrant workers have undergone preemptive COVID-19 testing following a cluster at Westlite Woodlands Dormitory.
2 RSAF planes loading up with oxygen cylinders this morning, transporting much-needed supplies to India.
Total employment in Singapore grows for the first time since the pandemic, while we speak to NTUC's Patrick Tay.
You're watching The Big Story, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. I'm Olivia Quay.
I'm Harianto Diman. You can subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode. 23 new COVID-19 cases were confirmed today, including 3 in the community.
The other 20 were imported and placed on stay-home notice or isolated when they arrived. More details will be shared later tonight.
No cases were reported in the migrant worker dorms today, but as a precaution after several cases were detected in the Westlite Woodlands Dormitory, pre-emptive testing operations are being conducted across dormitories and worksites.
From last Friday to this Monday, over 5,500 workers were tested, including those from the worksite related to Westlite Woodlands' confirmed cases, as well as workers from other dorms who have come into contact with them. This preemptive operation also involves workers who have recovered and those who have never been infected, and is on top of the rostered routine testing regime.
Yesterday, the Health Ministry said that 24 recovered workers from the Westlite Woodlands dorm were found to be positive, although 2 of them were later determined to be negative after retesting.
5 of the 24 were also assessed to be likely cases of reinfection. 11 were assessed to be shedding virus fragments, and the remaining 6 cases are pending assessment.
Dr. Leong Hoe Nam, an infectious diseases specialist from the Rophi Clinic, joins us now. Doctor, welcome back. Doctor, what we're seeing with reinfected cases, they point to the grim reality that COVID-19 can never be completely eradicated. Now, this may come across as a little demoralizing, but is there a bright spot?
Very sad, isn't it? Think about it. COVID-19 now, COVID-19 again and again. It looks like people can get reinfected again and again and again. But I think there are saving grace. I think there is an opportunity otherwise. Number one, never before has science been so advanced that we can actually create a vaccine within a year. Number two, we have very effective vaccines now. It is about rolling out to all the countries and to all the people. Number three, we have means, we have the medical capability and technology to actually counter to this rapidly adapting virus. If all of us, everyone, every country were to work together with science, not against science, we can surely still win the war against COVID-19, at least relegate it into a common cold. The possibility is there, but the heart is weak.
Perhaps it's useful to know, Doctor, about post-vaccine reinfections. Are they unusual, or are they actually quite common in other infectious diseases?
I'd rather look at it another way. If you look at chickenpox, once you have had one chickenpox, you tend not to get chickenpox again. Yes, you may, but very rare. Measles, you tend to have it once. Influenza, the same influenza strain, you don't get it again. But COVID-19 is a different story because the virus has adapted to actually avoid the immune blockage which the body would block. So in other words, you can be infected once and you can be infected again. And the way they do it is to change the goalposts. That's something I'm going to share with you. You see, the body learns to fight against a virus in a certain way. It's like a goalpost with soccer, we score straight to the goal. But the virus will mutate, and when it mutates, it literally shifts the goalpost from one place to another place. And all our immune system that's targeting the goalpost will now be less effective, which means winning against a virus is going to be more difficult, which means the virus can infect the individual again. Now, if the goalposts have been shifted once, can it shift again? Absolutely. So in turn, you can be shifting, and until you get infected again, and again. So this will be the curse for humans for many, many decades to come.
Well, Doc, let's look to what's happening in the US. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention announced that fully vaccinated Americans don't need to wear a mask when they're outdoors, either alone or in small groups.
Speaking to reporters on the White House grounds, US President Joe Biden echoed the CDC's guidelines.
Starting today, if you're fully vaccinated and you're outdoors, you need, and not in a big crowd, you no longer need to wear a mask. I want to be absolutely clear. If you're in a crowd, like a stadium or at a conference or a concert, you still need to wear a mask.
So if you actually look at the statement, if you're outdoors, alone, far away from everyone, the data is very clear. You're outdoor, you're alone, you're more than 2 meters away from anyone, no virus can come close to you. Number two, if you're outdoors, the air, the constant breath of fresh air, you feel the wind in the hair, this is where the virus will stay out of you, stay out of your hair. Number three, small groups. Small groups, ideally, we're talking about if we're in the same family, it's fine because back at home, you're fine. I think this is a scientifically correct statement, but this statement is also to try to validate his 100-day mask, which President Biden wanted. 100 days in office, give me 100 days where everyone wear a mask. He's trying to keep up to his election promise. Number three, I think he's trying to cheer up the nation and to get everyone excited a bit again. But the point is still remains the same. If you're outdoors but with big crowds or with close people, you still need a mask. Things don't change. And I think President Biden is really smart to realize this. The threat of the double mutant in India is very real. It can come into the US and it can decimate the economy of USA very quickly at the snap of fingers. To actually have this statement outdoors on your own is a way to lift the spirit up, lift the spirit of America.
Right. Well, from the U.S. situation to Hong Kong, the city will be easing its COVID-19 rules as well. From tomorrow, certain establishments like bars, pubs, karaoke clubs can reopen if staff and customers have at least 1 dose of the vaccine and use Hong Kong's contact tracing app. So, Doctor, what do you make of this strategy, to relax measures based on the extent of vaccination?
I think it is a strategy that's based on economic terms rather than the vaccine terms. If you look at it, 1 shot of vaccine will only give you a little bit of antibodies. You really need 2 shots to have some protection against the wild type virus at least. If you want to overcome the double mutants of India, my dear friend, 2 shots can barely make it. In other words, they are putting their individuals at risk if you have 1 shot and you go out to the pubs. And let's be very realistic here. If you're at the pubs, you're drinking beer, your spirits go up and your mask comes down. Everyone's going to be cheering and spreading any potential virus there may be. So I think it may be rather short-sighted. Now, the saving grace in his line in the Hong Kong statement and plans are they are going to have a trace together app that's very similar. When you have this app of trying to trace the contacts, then in turn you can try to control secondary spread. However, I will still be cautious because we are now talking about a double mutant from India. Double mutant that can overcome the vaccine efforts which we have. And remember, the virus just wants us to be under this tyranny of repeated infections. If there are huge numbers coming up again in Hong Kong, our projected bubble between Singapore and Hong Kong may just burst yet again. So I'll be very cautious. I'll be watching that space on Hong Kong.
Well, it's always a pleasure to speak with you, Dr. Leong. That was infectious diseases specialist Dr. Leong Hoe Nam from the Rophi Clinic at Mount Elizabeth Novena.
Elsewhere, India's COVID-19 death toll passed 200,000 today, and in the past 24 hours, nearly 361,000 new cases were recorded, taking the country's total to about 18 million.
Well, this morning, Singapore sent 2 plane loads of oxygen cylinders to help India address its unprecedented oxygen crisis.
The cylinders will be transported by the Republic of Singapore Air Force to West Bengal in India. Second Minister for Foreign Affairs Maliki Osman was at the handover at Paya Lebar Air Base, and he reaffirmed Singapore and India's strong bilateral relations.
What we see here today is a testament to the excellent relations between Singapore and India. This is made possible because of the existing close relationship between our two peoples, our governments, and our countries. I would like to thank the Government of India for the continuing to work with Singapore throughout this pandemic, keeping the supply chains open and essential goods flowing. While our contribution is modest, we hope that it will bring comfort and relief to those in need and encourage those on the front line in India who are working tirelessly to fight on.
These are indeed very, very challenging times in India. The number of cases is very high, and we continue to make efforts to contain the further spread of the pandemic by sourcing essential medical equipment from various parts of the world. We would like to thank Singapore for supporting us at a time like this through the availability of supply chains, linking Singapore and helping us source items here.
Meanwhile, the Singapore Red Cross has launched a public fundraising appeal to support affected communities in India. The funds will be used to purchase urgently needed medical equipment and supplies like ventilators, oxygen cylinders and oxygen concentrators. The donations can be made online through PayNow or by writing a check, and you can find out more details at redcross.sg.
According to the Monetary Authority of Singapore, Singapore's economic growth is likely to top 6% this year.
This exceeding the upper end of the 4 to 6% growth forecast and barring a significant setback in activity from a weaker recovery of the global economy or a surge in locally transmitted COVID-19 cases.
MAS also said that this robust estimate comes despite the continued unevenness in recovery across sectors, as well as higher uncertainty.
Meanwhile, the latest Manpower estimates today revealed that the labour market in the first quarter of this year has continued its recovery.
After 4 straight quarters of decline, total employment grew for the first time. Unemployment continued to ease to 2.9% in March, but that is still above pre-pandemic levels.
On a brighter note, retrenchments continued to decline for the second straight quarter to pre-pandemic levels. The Manpower Ministry cautioned, though, that there may still be pockets of job displacements due to ongoing restructuring and reorganization of businesses. We're joined now by Assistant Secretary General at NTUC, Patrick Tay. Welcome back to the show, Patrick. So can we get your quick reaction, first of all, to the latest employment numbers?
Yeah, I'm actually quite heartened and encouraged to see today's Q1 advanced labour market figures, because we are seeing positive signs of a steady improvement of the labour market conditions compared to, in fact, all 4 quarters last year. And notably, the total employment growth is very encouraging. For the first time, is growing, and unemployment rates continue its downward trend, which augurs well for all. And importantly, we see retrenchment numbers falling to about 2,100 in first quarter compared to actually 5,640 just a quarter ago. However, I'm quietly optimistic as we are still in the midst of the pandemic and really trying to get our get back on our feet across the various sectors.
Yep.
Patrick, like you rightly mentioned, total employment grew for the first time since the start of the pandemic, and unemployment continues to ease. Is it a signal then for NTUC to reassess support measures?
Yeah, I think it's important to pay close attention to how the pandemic pans out for the rest of this year. I think how our vaccination rates progress, how the tapering off of the job support scheme come end June will impact companies, and how air travel resumes before we can then review the support measures. Although MAS did give a very positive economic growth forecast this morning for 2021, I think the caveat is that the unemployment rates are still relatively higher than prior to the pandemic. And likewise, the deeper and of course the deeply affected sectors like aviation, aerospace, travel and tourism, and even hospitality continue to face exacting pressures with a very gradual resumption of air travel. So I'm cautiously optimistic in light of the very uneven recovery with jobs growth, specifically, in the modern services sector, and the outlook for the rest of the year remaining still quite uncertain. So my call is that employers and workers alike will still need to continue to double down our efforts in reskilling, upskilling, so as to prepare them to pivot in the next normal.
Well, thank you so much for setting aside time to speak with us, Patrick. That was Patrick Tay, Assistant Secretary General of NTUC. In other local news, IKEA's third store in Singapore opens tomorrow. The new IKEA Jurong spans 3 levels in Gem Mall and has more than 2,500 home furnishing products. It also features digital solutions not found at the other outlets, like cashless checkout counters on every floor and a click and collect service to minimize queues at its restaurant.
The YouTube channel allegedly run by this woman who had grilled train passengers about their race has been terminated. According to a YouTube statement today, it had violated the platform's harassment and cyberbullying policies. The channel had 29 video uploads, 28 of which alleged racism. Now, the oldest clip dates back to December 2016, but the rest were uploaded between April 2019 and earlier this month.
For the first time since the pandemic, the Istana grounds will be open to the public on May 13th to mark both Labor Day and Hari Raya Puasa. Visitors must reserve time slots via this website, and this can be done from 10 a.m. tomorrow. While unlike previous years, the open house will be more subdued. For instance, there won't be performances, tours, booths or food trucks, and the Istana's main building will be closed. Well, still, you can explore the new inclusive garden that was launched in February.
Transport Minister Ong Ye Kung told Leong Hoe Nam today that Singapore can consider allowing vaccinated residents to travel to countries with low COVID-19 cases, and they won't be quarantined when they return.
Mr. Ong noted that some countries like Britain, Denmark, France, Germany and the US already exempt Singapore travellers from quarantine. And even though infections have gone down in these places thanks to vaccination efforts, they're not a low enough level for Singapore to reciprocate with quarantine-free travel.
Hey, if you want to see a more light-hearted side of Mr. Ong, he cracked jokes and told personal stories when he was on 1FM 91.3 this morning.
He also shared his reaction when he was first informed that he'll be the new health minister.
But I just want to find out, what was the first word that came out of your mouth when you found out that you were going to be Minister of Health?
Well, at least I didn't learn about it from the press release. The Prime Minister was really nice. He called up every single one of us. I was number 3 or number 4, and then he told us about our posting. He explained what he expects of us. We spent 45 minutes or so chatting, and when he told me, I was wordless. At most you can hear, in my brain. Because nobody expect to be moved after like 8 months, 9 months in transport. I was all ready to stay 5 years, a whole term,
Right.
But I suppose he has his reasons, so he explained it to the media.
Being a minister must be a lot of hard work. So if you could rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your daily stress level?
Stress level. Depend on which day lah.
Today would be quite low,
today
we're thinking.
Today I'm in the studio at level 1, level 2. Yeah, but then FD was reporting about traffic jam, so it went up to 4 or 5 momentarily. Yeah. On days you have an MRT breakdown, then you reach 11.
Well, Mr. Ong also talked about his tenure as Education Minister, and you can watch the full interview, including off-air moments, on 1FM 91.3's Facebook page.
For more news and videos, visit straitstimes.com and remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below. Once again, I'm Haryanto Diman with Olivia Quay. Join us tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.